That's usually like he masquerades as actually a religious person. That's where he does most of his damage, to make Christianity look stupid.
But he is a pastor, isn't he?
Good
I mean
afternoon.
that's quite an act.
Hey, Mark, good to see you, buddy. Thanks for coming in. Yeah,
Hi, Mark.
Hey.
it's a
Mark.
pride.
Hello. Hey, Wild
How are
Heart.
you,
Long
Mark?
time no see, man.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Wild Heart for ages. Sorry, Sparrow. And Olive. Hey. Wasn't that Dr. Kenny Rhodes? Didn't he debate Matt
Yes.
Delahunty or some shit? I don't know.
He
I
did.
don't follow him in the
He did.
slightest.
He did, and he was a simp for Smokey. You know Smokey Saint, right, Mark? I think you and him crossed paths, I thought.
Yeah, we did a debate on morality, ironically enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was debating the subjective side of morality, and he was debating objective morality from his objective viewpoint. So yeah.
That must have gone well.
That just doesn't make us look good at all. It just doesn't.
Yeah, and that's that was the funny thing. Like afterwards, I just looked back and I said he actually had the temerity to get on a debate platform and debate morality against anybody at all.
Yeah.
Oh well,
You live, you learn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense, does it?
Yeah, I thought he was your friend for ages, though, Praise. Like, you were the one that hosted the debate.
I did. I tried to protect him. See, it's sort of... I hate to say this, but I think sometimes I'm prone to being used by other people that are narcissistic. And they know, because they know I don't want to just toot my own horn either. I'm just saying, I think this is the case, that I think that they know I'm kinder to people, that I'm more lenient on things, and they could take advantage of it. So
well,
I felt
that doesn't say much about you. It says something about them. People can manipulate. It's happens.
Can I say, just to be perfectly honest, before all the stuff came out, I quite liked Smokey Saint because I thought it was funny. I laughed at him. Do you know what I mean? Before you know that someone's a paedophile.
Yeah, I butted heads with him a few times, to be honest with you. We really didn't get along.
Yeah.
But
I mean, he was clearly obnoxious, but you know what I mean. I thought he was funny as well, so I liked him for a bit.
That's fair. Hey Kevin, how you doing? Is it Kevin? Should I just call you Kevin?
Hey, what's going on?
Oh, nothing much. Just cruised in, checking out the scenery. Oh, Praise! I loved the video that you did of me, man. That was so funny. I laughed so hard. Like seriously.
I hope you would.
Yeah, of course.
I hope you didn't take it.
Come on. To be honest with you, it's kind of flattering that you're like comparing me to, like, I'm with Dr. Dan in a video. It's like, wait, I'd love to have his kind of clout, mate. Trust me. All good, man. All good. I thought it was. Yeah. I laughed my ass off. It was funny.
It was supposed to be in good fun. Yeah, I'm glad you took it though, because I don't think I'm going to get good reviews on all atheists. I'm glad you did though.
What do you mean?
Well, I think Gustic Gibbon might not receive it too well. That's what I'm thinking. I might be wrong. Yeah.
Wait, was Erica in it?
Oh wait a minute. Okay, that's right. I did. Okay, so there's another video.
There's another one floating out there. Oh, Praise, what are you doing, man? Like, seriously.
Yeah, I told her it was all in good fun. It's not meant to disparage anyone. It's just to have some fun.
Fine. I think Erica more has a problem with Donnie, to be honest with you. She are really, and Dr. Dan as well. But that's okay. Everyone's cool with me. It's fine. It's all good.
We're not talking about Erica Hume, right?
No, we're talking about Eric Gutstick Gibbon.
Gibbon.
All right. Yeah.
She's a paleo something. I can't remember. She studies ancient humans like Neanderthal and Cro-Magnon and Homo erectus and that sort of stuff. So.
Yeah, she knows what. She's very informative, and we recognize her as a very formidable opponent, and very amicable, very nice. So
she's really nice.
I respect her greatly. Yeah.
Is it paleanthropist?
Yeah, paleoanthropology. Yes, that's the one.
Anthropologist.
Wow.
That's it.
Yeah.
I can barely even say the word. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. But Mark, I think I set a debate with Luca coming up, but I'd like to also set a debate with you with evolution too. I just don't know what platform would be would good for you.
I sent something to Amy because we were going to go on her channel to the debate me bra, whatever she calls it, her debating thing. I'd kind of assumed that she'd sent you something, but it's not a problem. I've got your email address. I can send it.
Mark, are you talking about Amy Newman?
Yeah.
Why are you calling him a she?
Well, because she's a she. That's what she wants to be called. So. Huh?
Oh.
Why would I have a problem with that? I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with calling you Kevin if you want to be called Kevin. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Can I just say, what happens is when you meet someone, you ask them how they want to be.
We can redefine English language because someone wants to.
All right, shush, bigoted. Cunt.
Bigot.
It is bigoted.
Yeah, bigoted cunt.
You mean sensible?
No need for that.
Shush. But he clearly is.
Well, tomorrow, if you started wearing a wig and took estrogen pills and said you wanted to be called Angelina, right? That you're a woman, I would refuse.
No, I'm just saying, being British, the polite thing to do is ask someone what they want to be called, and then call them by what they want to be called.
Wait, hang on, Wilder. So someone that's suffering from gender identity dysphoria, which we used to give medication for. So instead of encouraging someone to get help for their mental illness, you want to encourage them in it?
It's not a mental illness.
Well, here's the funny thing, Kevin. We used to give prefrontal lobotomy to people suffering from mental illness as well. So times have moved on since then. We kind of don't treat some things the same. People with epilepsy we used to think were possessed by demons. We don't think that anymore. It's no skin off my back to call somebody whatever they want to be called. I don't care. And I mean, if you want to care so much, well, you go ahead, but it doesn't worry.
If I asked you guys to,
it's just basic human decency.
Panda bear, you guys would consider me a panda bear.
No, it's just basic human decency and basic politeness to just call someone what they want to be called.
Well, if you want to have a problem with it, it's your problem. It's not my problem. I don't have a problem. So, if you want to project your bigotry onto me, well, I'm really not
why do you
interested.
keep calling it bigotry?
Because it is. It's basically taking a segment of the population.
A man is a man and a woman is a woman. Why are we confusing people?
Well, we're not. It seems you're the one that's confused.
Sorry, the definition of bigotry.
I'm not confused.
Middle of a sentence. The definition of bigotry is holding something against someone that they have no control over. Transgender people, they don't have control over what they feel. Gender is different from. So that's the definition of bigotry. They have no control over it, and you are holding it against them. You are victimizing them due to what they have no control over. You are a bigot.
Yeah.
Does Amy have the genitals of a man?
So you can I'm not even gonna go there. You can
Mark,
sort of be
does
a bigot
Amy
if
have
you want.
the
Just don't
genitals of a
project
man?
it onto me. I don't feel like I want to do that. Look,
let me put it this way. Does
I'm not
Amy
going
have
to
a white
discuss anything about anybody's private parts. I think it's rude and obnoxious. I wouldn't like you to, sort of talking about my stuff like that. So, yeah.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
Does Amy have a Y chromosome?
I don't know. I haven't tested her. Do you want to go and ask or something? Are you that much of a bigot?
Plus, there's a difference between gender and sex. Sex is biological. Gender is not.
So this is what atheism does, huh? It just leads to lunacy. Okay.
What does? Sorry?
Got it.
Yeah, it's because in different cultures, for instance, you get like a third gender or even a fourth gender, I believe, in the case of
There's
one of the
only two
Asian
genders. What are
nations.
you talking about?
There are people that fill the roles of other genders. Yeah, see, this is the kind of stuff that I really makes me sad when Americans have no idea about other cultures, no idea about overseas stuff, and they just want to sort of generalize and say, hey, because I think this, it must apply to the rest of the world and all other cultures. There's throughout history, there's been tons of cultures with different genders assigned, and in the case of Thailand, I believe they have
Mark, wait, hold on,
assigned to men.
You said there's more than
no,
two
I don't
genders.
think I will. So when you see those in other cultures, you can just sort of say,
Mark.
well, this isn't
Hey.
something that is
Hey.
intrinsically
Hey,
true
Mark.
of sexes.
Hey,
Yeah.
when you're done piffling, so you said there's more than two genders, right?
Sorry.
There's more than two genders?
In
Is that
other
what you said?
cultures, there has been, yeah. So if you actually listen while I explained, well, I mean, you can not believe it if you want, but I believe.
Wait, why wouldn't you believe? Why wouldn't you believe in more than two genders? After all, under Christianity, there has to be more than two genders because God has gendered pronouns, but He's not a man or a woman.
Here you go. Shut up.
That's a good point, Danny.
What's up, Danny? Good to see you, man.
Hey, what's up, Praise? Yeah, I'm just saying that there's got to be a third gender at least for God.
No, there's male and female.
Does God have a Y chromosome?
No.
Well, there you go.
Is He referred to
Not a
as
man,
He?
then.
Well, I'll put it this way: Jesus does, and Jesus is God. So technically,
Yeah, but is God the Father? Is God the Father a He?
God is called Father, so you understand His role, how He treats His.
Yeah, answer the question: is God the Father a He?
Well, the Bible says He, yeah.
Or do you think that? Do you believe that God the Father is a He?
Well, yeah, that's what I call Him. I call Him Father.
All right. Does God the Father have any chromosomes?
Not that I know of. Spirit is invisible. He's spirit.
Exactly. So that means that you can understand gendered terms or a gender without chromosomes at all.
Right.
Yeah, but we're speaking of human beings.
No, but we're
just talking about gender.
You said it was to understand his role, Kevin. You said we call him he to understand his role. So what Danny's getting at is that is exactly what a gender role is.
Yeah, but as far as humans are concerned, your gender isn't separated from your sex. It's the same thing.
We're talking about the concept of gender. The concept of gender doesn't necessitate biology. Do you agree now?
Danny, don't play this game with me.
Do you agree? Yes or no?
Don't play this game.
It's not a game. I don't know why you think everything's a game. Sorry, Danny, go ahead.
It's a game when they're losing, right? So the idea is that
Am I the only one that's understanding what's going on here?
Yeah. So do you think there's a distinction between gender and sex? Yes or no, Kevin?
Let me ask you this: how many genders are there?
I mean, it just kind of depends on the culture. Broadly speaking, there could be multiple. I mean, it depends on what you mean by gender as well.
Can
But
you name them?
the
If
idea
there
is
are more
that
than two genders, can you tell me what the other ones are?
yeah, God would be the third gender.
Stop playing with me.
I can bring it back down to an even better level.
Wild Heart, I don't know what's in your mouth, but swallow it so I can understand you.
That wasn't me. Does God have a penis? Does God have a vagina?
Does God have
by your logic? By your logic,
vagina. What did you say, vagina? What is that?
By your logic, if he doesn't have a penis and he doesn't have a vagina, he must be a third gender.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He has an infinity penis.
Wow. So everywhere is his penis. Everywhere is God's penis. Is that what you're saying to me? Currently we are sitting in and surrounded by God's penis. Thanks, Praise. That's a vivid image.
Absolutely.
Right, okay. Just thought I'd check.
Brilliant.
The whole point is when I think of stuff like womanly and manly, chromosomes and genitalia are not what comes up for me. It's sort of gender roles are not sort of based on physical things. Like if I say don't be a woman kind of thing, or you're acting like a woman, you're not.
Or you're a father figure,
right? Or you're
a father figure. In the God case, right? Father and mother, right? Father doesn't have to be understood biologically. After all, you think God the Father is not biological. It's weird for me. I think most Christians should understand what a transgender person is, that they exist.
Yes, it's someone with a mental illness.
Okay, what's the mental illness? Are they contradicting themselves?
I think they're trying to live in a delusion for whatever reason. I mean, it's not necessarily their fault. I think there's something
Yeah,
wrong
just
with
tell
them.
me, what the false belief is, so that we could say that they're delusional.
I don't know. It's a mental problem.
Okay, is it a delusion? Yes or no?
I don't know. It could be a chemical imbalance.
Is it a delusion? Yes or no?
It is delusional. Yeah.
Okay, so that means there's a false belief. So what false belief do they have?
I don't know. Why don't you ask them?
Well, you're the one that's making the
Yeah.
claim that they're delusional.
Yeah.
Which means
Well,
you've identified a false belief.
If you're a man, you got Y chromosome, you got a penis, you got dense bone structure, you got a denser muscle mass naturally. I mean, you
Are
can't.
those all necessary features of man?
I've known some pretty effeminate men that still identify as men.
Well, effeminate or not, they still have a Y chromosome. You can't.
Okay, so
change
do you think that in order to be a man, or the definition of man implies XY chromosome?
Yes, if you're talking about a male.
All right. So if now during biblical times, did they understand what chromosomes were?
Well, no, obviously they didn't.
Okay. Did they know who men were?
Yeah.
Okay, so that means they knew what a
Because
man
there's obvious
was.
distinctions
They
between a
had
man
a
and a
sense
woman,
of man.
but
They had a
the way you're
definition of
built,
man.
you're-
They
you're-
had, excuse me. They had a sense of man. They had a definition of man that was divorced of chromosomes, which means that your sense of man is also divorced of chromosomes if you're using the biblical
Danny, so you
interpretation.
don't agree that science can tell us who's male and who's female?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there's a flaw with your
Oh, okay.
definition in defining man in terms of chromosomes. Otherwise, people from the Bible have no clue what a man is.
Right, they've got no basis for determining what's
Because
a
they
man
didn't know
and
what
what's a woman.
chromosomes were.
Right.
If you're walking down the street, you can you could tell who's a man and who's a woman.
Oh, we're not moving on from this point. Do you agree that you gave a flawed definition of man?
No.
Okay, so then the definition of man is a person with XY chromosomes, yes?
Yeah.
Was that the definition of man that the biblical authors were
You
operating
can't
on?
put you cannot.
Just yes or no. These are yes or no.
Modern science and things we've discovered on an ancient past that didn't have the ability to define those things.
Right, but they still knew what men were, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that means you can know what a man is. That means that the definition or the sense of man doesn't necessarily imply chromosomes at all.
Danny, do you agree that men have Y chromosomes?
Some do, some don't.
What?
Some do, some don't.
How can you be a man or a male, a natural male, and not have a Y chromosome?
The point is that the concept of man doesn't entail chromosomes. After all, people from the Bible understood what a man was. They didn't know what chromosomes were.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
So what? Let me explain why it matters.
Listen,
if you're
if they
giving
had
me
the
your concept
technology
of man,
to look at chromosomes and DNA and cell structures and things like we do today, they would define a man by the chromosome. I guarantee you.
okay, but the fact is that they don't, and they still know what a
didn't
man
have those
is.
things. You are correct.
Yeah, so they don't know what. Look, the point is that do you know what it means to be
Can you
true
tell-
by definition?
Wait, hold on. So when people like archaeologists or something, when they find bones in the dirt, and they're able to identify the skeleton as male or female, would you admit that men and women have different bone structures? You could tell a male skeleton versus a female skeleton.
Yeah, I'm fine with saying that archaeologists, paleontologists can identify biological sex, but that's not
Sex,
what we're talking
yes.
about. We're talking about gender.
Yes, we are talking about gender, and you seem to be stuck on biological sex.
Good news. Bill says, "Come on, it's so flippin' obvious. A man has a sausage and 2 potatoes betwixt his legs, a woman does not." So
is there only
that
men
suffice?
and women? Is that the only two available?
Obviously.
So what's
I'd say these
intersex
as well.
person?
So you're talking about a rare deformity.
That's not a deformity. It's just intersex. It's not deformity.
Yeah, well, people that are born with both genitals usually have one severely underdeveloped and the other one fully developed. So
Sometimes,
Or
yes.
eunuchs.
sometimes
So
no.
can eunuchs not be men? Like, what if someone?
no, see, Danny, come on. Eunuchs are born men, but then they are castrated.
So that they no longer men?
They still have the physiology of a man, the muscle structure of a man, the skeletal structure of a man.
I'm just pointing out it's not as easy as saying that a man is a person with
If
a
someone
sausage and 2 balls.
cut your penis off before the Y chromosome,
Okay, so then you agree. You just actually you agree with me that this
Anyway,
guy in the chat is
why
wrong for
it's not
defining
hard.
man.
You can
Excuse
tell
me.
who's a man and who's a woman.
Excuse me. You and I agree that the
Oh, no, you're
person in the
speaking
you
verbal
excuse me, Kevin.
man.
Excuse me. I'm not
Swallow
done.
your
You
diuretic.
excuse
Kevin,
me, Kevin.
let
Excuse
Danny
me.
talk. Let Danny talk.
Wipe your lip.
I mean,
Shut up, Mark. Grow some hair.
Yeah,
I've been
Kevin.
trying. It hasn't worked too well. I'll concentrate more.
Have
Yeah,
wild hair on your forehead. Who knows what comes out of his mouth?
Yeah, Kevin, the point is that you and
yeah.
I agree that the person that offered the definition of man as having a sausage and 2 balls is not an adequate
Bill's done
definition.
Right.
Bill's done
Have
that.
a different
I gave you more
viewpoint.
examples. I talked about skeletal structure, bone density, muscle mass, and there's other features too. Like men have narrower hips, women have wider hips naturally.
Oh, so
There's
you're
Are
a
these-
woman.
Are these necessary features or contingent features of men?
what?
Are these necessary features or contingent features of men?
So is anyone with a light bone structure automatically a woman like you?
No, but if okay, so there are women that do have bigger bone structures, but
Sure.
they'll also have other feminine features that you can tell.
But all of the things that you listed, a woman could have and still have a double X chromosome, right?
Well, as far as the denser muscle mass, women don't naturally have that. They have to work for it.
But they could have it, right?
But yes, they could get it. Yes.
Can men have uteruses though?
What, you mean in a drawer somewhere, or what are you talking
Well, I
about?
mean, I don't think it's possible for a man to have a uterus because we identify woman or womanhood with having a baby. You agree with that, right?
If you want to know someone's a woman, do you look at their uterus?
Yes, if I'm a gynecologist, absolutely.
Well, you're not a gynecologist as far as I know, Praise. I think that would be a horrifying prospect seeing you at the end of my legs, but you know, that's not how you decide what is a woman in society. It's certain traits that we associate with femininity, kind of thing, and none of them are really... Sorry,
Just
Danny.
think of God's omnipotence. Could God create a man with a uterus? Is he powerful enough? Is God powerful enough to create a man with a uterus?
Jawbone. Women's face usually tend to be more round.
He has the potence to do that, yes, Danny.
So that means that they're not. That means that a man could have a uterus. If God can do it, it could happen.
Danny, what on earth?
Not
Can I
logically, yes, that's true. but
Can I
not-
ask a stupid question? Is it possible for a woman to not have a uterus?
If she has it removed.
Right, so would that make her a man? If
No.
there were only 2 genders, she has to be one or the other. And if she doesn't have a uterus, that must make her a man.
No. It'd
Yeah.
make her a woman that had her uterus removed.
Intersex people might have both. So what do you do in that case?
I already answered that.
Well, no, you didn't. You
One
just
is
sort of
clearly
plaintively
underdeveloped
bleated
and the other
about
one's
some
fully developed.
problems and basically wouldn't... Which category do you designate them in?
Okay.
Too hard?
Is
Too
it
hard a
maybe
question?
possible to just say 3?
Sorry, who was that?
Oh, it's Yo-Yo. Hear me?
yeah. What did you say? Sorry, I missed that.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
I
you.
was like, is it possible? Yeah, I was gonna say, is it possible then to maybe have 3, but in this sense to say, but what's common is male and female, and then what's not usually common, it's the intersex. I mean, it does okay. We do have people with both genders, but that's less of an occurrence than male or
That's true.
female.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't think there's anything else. There's no other genders besides male, female, or sometimes intersex.
Well, I think it's the...
And intersex means just having both.
I think the designation is to say, hey, there's sort of biologically male, biologically female, but gender roles in our society aren't really comprised of whether you're physically male or physically female. They're kind of roles. And if you look at other cultures like Thailand, you do have a cross roles and even a third gender that does a sort of takes on both roles. That isn't anything to do with your physical form or your physiology, and that's just how we refer to gender roles.
Yeah, gender is
Would
different from sex. You might
would
have,
gender be more of a question of identity rather than your biological make?
Correct. And something like the Amazons, right? The Amazons had a very woman-centric thing, the Amazons took on what we would call a man gender role kind of thing, and actually enslaved all the men and had a pretty brutal time of it. But they would occupy what we would call a man's gender role kind of thing in those ancient cultures.
Which I've never heard of that. That's the first time.
Amazons? Really?
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I mean, and you read about Amazon, especially in the sort of Greek myths kind of thing. I think Heracles, or Hercules, as he's commonly known, sort of engaged with them a little bit. Basically, warrior women that enslaved the menfolk and took charge of their civilization kind of thing.
I think they were called Amazonians.
Possibly. I mean...
Yeah, same thing.
You could very
But
well
I have
be
a-
right, Wildheart.
But I have an interesting question because I always hear about this thing of gender, and I was just looking at the definitions before. Okay, so let me get so there's sex. So sex you can either have male, female, or sometimes there's those rare occurrences of person having both sexes or intersex. But then you have gender. Okay, I want to understand gender. So are they saying like a person can be born in a biologically male body, but they say that they are not male? Is it like they're not accepting the body, or they're saying that there's something else? I'm trying to understand that.
Well,
part.
in the
How do you
first place,
define that?
and Mark has said this a couple times, even when we use the terms male, we're rarely referring to the way that biologists use male and female. Rarely. Usually when biologists refer to the male and female, they're talking about the size of gametes and stuff like that. And there's actually shifts between, what qualifies as male and female throughout the science of biology. We're rarely talking about that. Even colloquially, when people say male, they are referring to most of those a kind of person with certain set of secondary sex characteristics. And what happens is that those secondary sex characteristics are associated with certain roles, and then that's kind of what builds our concepts of gender, and they're fluid, right? They're a matter of our aims and social connections, and that when we establish these conditions for being man and woman, and those can change. But
so based on what you're saying, yeah, that's what I was saying. So based on what you're saying, you're sort of saying gender is more of like a role. So like I could be almost saying I could be identified as a CEO, let's say, because that's my role. Therefore, I identify as that particular role built on my social stands and status. Or is there more?
I don't want to just say a role though, because there are part of gender dysphoria body dysphoria has to do with someone having certain commitments about a gender role in their presentation. It's not simply the way that society interacts with them and how they interact with society. That's what this is what we're meaning by the term role. It's that they want to present a certain way as well. And I'm just saying that presentation in conjunction with the role might be tracking what they mean when they say I'm a man or a woman. And not only is that fluid, but people have various concepts of these things, right? So, and I think that's what's going on.
For me, I want to get into like the real nitty-gritties, because this is what's evident. Huh? I just want to get into.
Can I ask? Can I ask?
Hold on, I'm just gonna ask one thing. I just want to know one thing, because this is what we see. So, how do you explain this? Because this is the issue, right? We see people being born in what we define as a male body. They have a male body, and then they say, "Well, I'm a woman," or "I'm this," or "I identify as this." What does that mean then, in the sense?
Yeah, but first of all, you have a concept of male boy, and that might be very different concept than what male means in a biology textbook, right?
Yeah, but I'm now basing it based on what we see and what's real and what's actually practical in the real world.
So
because this concept they don't exist in the world.
I would guess that when you say that they're born a male or boy, you're just saying you're just talking about their genitalia, presumably. Is that what you're talking about? What do you mean by male in this context?
I'm being specific, just in the same sense. Okay, I'm talking about the traits or how we identify specific, like, what do you call it? just like when everyone say what's a cat, you'll be able to point and say that's a cat because everyone knows the features of a cat. Everyone knows what a cat looks like. So what I mean is like when we say a male, everybody
Okay,
knows what a male looks like, or what a
so
female looks like,
yeah,
or what
so
a person
the
with
problem here
intersex
is that
look
that
like.
plays into my view because I don't think that there's an essential feature of cat. I'm not an essentialist about any of these ordinary objects like pots and pans, cats and dogs,
What?
men and women. I take a family resemblance view, which means that there's going to be a set of overlapping features that when I use the term man, that that entity that I'm referring to has a subset of those features, right? They don't have to necessarily have that subset, and they could vary. The point is that when I ask you, when I use terms like pots and pans or men or women, I might be using the term differently depending on the context, right? And so it's not going to be like I'm just not an essentialist about these things. It seems like you're not either.
How do you apply that in the room? Oh yeah,
Can
go
I
ahead.
ask
Somebody
a
else can
question?
ask.
I just wanted to ask a question to see if we can clarify this from how I understood it. And I'm not an expert, so I'm asking you because it will spend more time looking at this. But from what I understand, gender is simply a linguistic term, mainly for other languages, to refer to whether a word is masculine or feminine, right? So you have le and la. That's all I can think of in French.
French, yeah.
And that's what. Yeah, so that's the original what gender was maybe 100 years ago, okay, and up until quite recently, it was co-opted and changed into this new idea of a social construct, which is what it basically is. But from what I was asking you in the chat earlier, it doesn't actually relate to anything scientific. So when we say a man or a woman, that relates to a male human being, right, or a female human being, because it's a man. A cat isn't a man, right? And that's referring to scientific X chromosomes, whatever, things that are scientific. But when we talk about gender, we are basically simply have sort of repackaged what gender is to be what you're describing, right? Gender roles and certain sort of preconceptions that are all socially constructed. So my question is, if it's not scientific, I mean, coming from guys like you who are very into science, I don't understand why you're so into this when there isn't really hardly any.
There are a lot of things that are not scientific that we label ourselves, like teachers, student. I don't think the notion of a teacher and a student, like that's a scientific natural kind, right?
Really?
Presidents, senators, these are all constructed things for government.
A lot of it gets into sociology, right? So statistics and the way that we socially construct things like institutions, right? There's no such thing scientifically as a government, right? You'd agree?
Yeah, I know, but I don't agree really, because some
test tube, right? So, but there are things that we socially construct in order to make our lives easier. And the thing is, trans people have been around for ages. Like back in 2500 BC, there's been examples of trans people in Sumner. Who a priesthood would change from male to female and do all kinds of observations of rights. It's been happening forever.
Yeah, I'm not saying.
Can I say one thing?
I'm not. Yeah, sorry.
I was just gonna ask one thing. I'm kind of confused. Can we go back a step a little bit? So how do you make me understand your viewpoint in the real world? Because let's say we're at a hospital and there's a woman on the delivery bed. When a baby is born, when they look at it, they're able to say this is male or this is female. So from your point of view, right? From your point of view, if a child is born, then how do you look at it and say, what would you say? Oh, this is a thing, or how would you? I mean, I just want to understand that
I think
part.
like you would, like if we both saw a delivery and we saw a little infant with a penis, we might say that that's a boy, or
no, it's definitely a boy, you absolute moron.
Wait, I'm agreeing with you, Kevin.
I mean, you sound really frustrated.
Actually, I'm expressing agreement. Kevin's just not tracking. I'm expressing agreement with you, Kevin. So it's kind of funny that you're calling me a moron. Because
And
if
also
you're,
on this,
Might be a boy. No, if it has a cock and balls, it's definitely a boy. You absolute idiot. Right.
yeah, but yeah,
Danny,
I'm
in your
saying-
answer, hold on.
Strong delusion, right?
Oh, hold on, guys. Hold on. Oh, Dan, in your answer, when you're answering, can you make it make sense as well? Because sometimes I feel like I get it. You're explaining all this theory stuff, but then how does it actually? Okay, just we're in the same scenario. A child is being born. in the hospitals, it's a custom everywhere in the world where a nurse will look at a child, say, "Oh, you have a baby boy. Oh, congratulations. You have a baby girl." I've never heard of, "Oh, you have a baby he, she," or "Oh, you have a baby he, they." I've never heard of that. It's always, yeah.
So what
I think I agree with Kevin, which I don't know why he's calling me a moron when I agree with him here. I would call it a boy.
Because you said it
I would
might
call
be
it
a boy.
So
There's no might
what we
involved.
generally
It is a
do
boy.
is assign the social construct of a man or a boy towards the biologically male sort of biology kind of thing. Some people grow up and they don't feel that gender role fits them, and they feel very, very strongly about that. And it's not even something they have control over. They don't decide, "Hey, I want to be this other thing." That is just the way they are. So basically, it's not that you cannot assign a gender roles at birth. The whole point is that if you do want to change gender roles, there's nothing about a gender role that is biological or physical that you cannot change it. Because as Cat Earth said, words have gender assignments. Like in French, male and female assignments,
or in Spanish, yeah.
Right, okay. So let me make.
But this is.
So let me make sense of this. Oh, okay. No. Let me make sense of this. Let me make sense of this. So, okay. So you're saying, sorry. So you're saying this. Okay. If I'm understanding this right, it's totally two different things. So you're saying, okay, a child is on the bed. A mother is on the bed and she's giving birth, and let's say a baby boy comes out. We would look at this and be, okay, the sex of that is a boy, but later on in life, as this boy now develops, that boy will feel like, okay, maybe I'm not who I am. I feel like I'm a woman, or I feel I'm a he, she, they. Therefore, that's when
I want to be very clear.
Yeah,
when most
that's when we. I was just gonna say that's when we transition from there, from your sexual orientation to now your gender orientation, where gender is pretty much how you identify yourself.
It was gender from the start. Like your gender identity was given to you at the start of your life. It's not that you don't have one and then suddenly you have one. You do have one, even if someone's buying you a blue blanket for a boy and pink for a girl. That's a gender identity.
Yeah, and even if that's not the case, I'm just saying a lot of people, when they say that's a boy, they just mean a person with this genitalia. They just might mean that, right? Or if they were to say male, they might mean that. I'm just saying these words are constantly equivocated on. It's ambiguous about what we mean, and when we use gendered terms, and even these notions like male and female, we don't even always, like I said, track the scientific, biological sense of the terms. So you just ask people, "Hey, when you pointed at that thing with a penis, when you said boy, what did you mean?" And they just might say, "Well, I just
Danny,
meant,
bruh."
But do you know what this means, though?
When you got a second, I got a question for you, Yo-Yo. Why do you think biological males have one less rib? What possessed you to write that?
I based that on what I read in the Bible, or what did people read in the Bible and what people have told me as well.
I would like to actually let Kat kind of jump in here too, because he wanted to finish. So go ahead. Kat.
That's okay. So yeah, there's a few things. One was about what you said about the government is a social construct. I kind of agree with that, but we all have to agree that there are prerequisites to, say, being the president, right? You have to win an election. And even then, not everyone may agree, right? The last couple of elections, no one's really agreeing in America, but that doesn't take away from the fact that that person is the president.
How's it science? Your point was that some things
no, because
science.
You're saying it's a social construct. But what I'm saying is why, if there's lots of things that's social construct, but it doesn't mean we can just get to pick that I'm the president. I really feel like I'm the president of the United States.
Yeah, we're not saying
here
that.
in London. It doesn't mean it's so. But you just said it's
matter a lot. Social constructs matter a lot.
My question is, why should we accept, with no real scientific backing, your social construct? Why should I accept that? Why should I?
I'm not even suggesting you should, so much as the definitions that are being offered for male and female, man and woman, are inadequate.
But I don't think they are. And on top of that,
did you agree with Kevin's definition of male? Or man?
I can't remember what he said. What was it?
He defined man in terms of chromosomes. Do you agree with that?
Yes. Male, yes.
So then that poses a problem. Number one, that people knew what men were thousands of years ago, but they had no idea what chromosomes were. So they were operating on a different definition.
It's one of the definitions, but really, this is what I don't understand. That if you know that very well, that you're saying that some people feel that they're different, that they're born in the wrong sex body, right, and that's how they feel, and that's their gender, so they feel their gender is opposite, right? That's what you're saying. Do you know what I mean? You're saying people are saying that, and you're saying that now there isn't a word for them. And I'm saying, why do we have to be told that that person who's a trans male is actually a male when there's no scientific basis behind them?
It just depends on what these words. A lot of this is a
this is all a
semantic
linguistic
dispute.
trick, is what I'm trying to say.
And
So
the whole point is that a president that has, like, if you just make someone the president, they decide to be that affects your life. But these people aren't affecting your life in the slightest.
well, they will affect my life if you are forcing
all you've got
me.
to do is just ask how they want to be referred to, and that's it. And I mean,
But hang on a minute. I don't ask how anyone is referred to. I just refer to them. So you're already affecting my life, because now I have to make a life-altering change, or I have to figure out. Ask
Well, look,
people
there are three
no,
different
you're saying
issues
it's not
here.
affecting my life in any way.
Different...
And in my country, you can actually be arrested for misgendering someone or saying mean things on Twitter, all kinds of stuff.
Look, there's
right?
three different issues here. There's three different.
I think you can. Like, you got to check. I mean, I'll look stuff up, but we have something like 7,000 arrests.
Hate speech and sort of bigotry. If you
well, that would go under. That can be classed under hate speech.
And continue to do that to them with a malicious intent. But
but at the same time, you're saying it wouldn't affect my life in any way. I've just demonstrated.
But look,
there is a big effect. Now, hang on.
Do you just choose a random name to call people when you meet them,
but
or do you just say,
this wasn't
No. This is important. When you meet somebody, do you just go, "Well, I'm going to call you Bruce because I don't know your name and I don't want to take the time to learn your name. And why should what you want to be called affect me?"
Who does that?
No, I don't.
Nobody.
A name is not a pronoun.
Name.
No, I'm asking. A name isn't a pronoun.
So
asking someone's name is quite normal. Asking someone a pronoun is a difference to our lives right now. So
we need to rewind for a second.
Trying to affect people's lives.
There's multiple issues at hand here. There's I came here for two reasons, right? Number one, I wanted to emphasize the difference between gender and sex, and that's to say that address the certain definitions of man and woman that were given. Number two, that the claim that trans people are delusional is a false claim itself. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, then there's the third issue that you're talking about, which is what you should do in terms of using pronouns or names.
And
that's a totally separate issue, although that might be worth talking about. I'm saying is that there's no basis for the claim that transgender people are delusional, and there is a distinction between gender and sex.
I agree with you as well.
Kat, I just want to say something. This entire thing started not because we went, "Hey, you used the wrong pronoun for somebody." This all started when Kevin the Marvel over here wanted to hassle me for using the pronoun that somebody wanted to use. That's what happened.
Right.
He actually came up and was like, "Why are you using that pronoun for somebody?" And I said, "Well, it's the one they wanted to use." And Captain Marvel over here decided that he didn't like that. And I don't know what the problem with that is.
I know, but I wasn't here at the beginning. But I'm more interested in because I'm really interested in the topic.
There's something interesting that I wanted to say that I just discovered about this, because it seems like now what's happening is that at birth, right? So according to what everyone is saying, at birth, there's gender and sex. They happen at the beginning, or when you're being born. So your sex is what we then, when we look at you, everyone will say male or female, but your gender, it seems like you are the one who then decide on that. But that's something. Wait, that's something interesting though, because then you guys, what you then assign at that point is that, number one, people, it's like they have two sides to them. There's either the soul and the body. When you're born, you're given a body, but you're saying, but you have a soul, and your soul can decide later on in life how it wants to identify in this world. So you're sort of bringing an aspect to say that there is physical and spiritual. You're sort of like, what's the word?
I'm not a dualist.
Acknowledging.
I'm not a dualist.
Yeah, but then how is it?
I agree with that. Yeah.
No, but my question is that how is it then can a person, let's say, be born in a wrong body? That makes no sense at all at this point in time.
Just think of this in terms of Christianity. You don't think that the fall of man and the sin and the sinful nature and all this, what happened at the Garden of Eden could have brought about, just like it brought about cancer and hepatitis and all these other diseases. You don't think it could bring about this kind of dysphoria?
Yes, I do. I agree.
I mean,
But for me,
100%.
you get my point. Okay, I have a different concept. Okay, if you're born as a male, why not accept that you have a male body instead of trying to change it to be a female or to be anything else?
sorry, can
That's
you
my
repeat that
question.
again?
If you're born as a male, why not accept that you're a male and you have a male body instead of now trying to say, oh, wait, I'm not a male, then try to change? Because the idea of transition or anything else that is in this world, the idea of transition is to try to turn your male body into now a female body.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good question. It's a difficult question, but I don't think there's an interesting answer other than they just have commitments that are out of line with their presentation. And that's the ultimate answer, right? That they have commitments to present in a certain way, to interact with society in a certain way, and to be perceived by society in a certain way. And their biology might be getting in the way of that. And so they do their best
So wouldn't it be
with the
a loving
technology that we
thing
have to
for
change
help,
that.
Danny?
Do
But
you know
wouldn't
what?
you
I
say
don't
that's
think.
against nature?
Would I guess what?
Wouldn't you say that's a little bit against nature or the natural,
It would be
the
hard to
natural
understand what
cause
that
of things?
means. It would be very
Because,
hard to
okay,
understand what that means.
yeah, let me explain then. Because if you look at, let's say if we were to, let's say if you look at male and female, there's something that you get in a male and female that you don't get in any other gender orientations or any other relationship orientations, which suggests that the natural means, even in nature, it's seen where you have a male and female, unless you're talking about bacteria or certain rare cases.
Or two
Wouldn't you
male
then
penguins
assume?
raising an egg? You mean like that?
Yeah. Then
I mean,
wouldn't you say
Look, how are
the
you using male and
idea?
female? Look, are you using male and female to refer to sizes of gametes, for instance?
No, I'm just saying that now when you have things like a man transitioning to a woman or a woman transition to a man or man or female, wouldn't you say those kind of things are sort of against nature? Because nature, it seems like what's natural is man, woman, because that's the only scenario where I see procreation. Other than that, any other scenario, how do you account for things like procreation and other stuff
Yeah,
that you
look,
can get
it
in?
might be that the biological sense of male and female have to do a lot with reproduction, but then there's going to be an open question about whether these genders like boy, girl, man, woman, whether they have implications on how one ought to reproduce, right? Because if it's the case that, I mean, I just think that you could completely strip away a person's reproductive system and there'd still be a total sensical way to talk about them in terms of their maleness, femaleness, womanhood, manhood, whatever.
So,
Right.
so Danny, what I was just going to say is this whole thing, and with respect and what the questions I've asked you, this whole thing is just a linguistic trick.
A lot
There's
of
no,
it is.
yeah,
What do you
exactly,
mean a
and there's no
trick, though?
reason for us to change
Who
words
are you
because
tricking?
no, can I make the point,
Well,
and then
I think
I'll
what he
talk
means
to
is
you,
that
Mark. But like,
it's a
no,
lot
no,
of
wait,
people
can I
talking past each
please
other.
finish a
Danny,
point?
shut
Please, please let me finish a whole point.
Seriously.
So it's a linguistic trick. So what I keep asking is, why do we need to change the meaning of words to make life more confusing for everyone? So a trans man, we know what that is. A trans man is not a man. A trans man is a trans man. What is the problem with
Okay, well,
that?
there's problems here, right? So
Yeah.
the first thing is that I don't think it's a trick so much as a lot of people talk past each other in this discussion. Okay, some people they say what a man is XY chromosomes. It's obvious that trans people, when they say that they're like a trans man, when they say they're a man, they're not talking about chromosomes. So that's them talking. That's you talking past them. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing, your second point is, what? Can you repeat your second point?
No, so my point is, if we have a word for a trans man and we have man, which is, I mean, we have all these words.
Yes.
Why do we
Okay,
need
now
to
I remember.
confuse the words?
Yeah,
Because it's
why do
confusing
words
everyone.
Have to change? They don't have
Yeah,
to
the
change,
point is,
but they
I
do
actually would
change.
argue
That's what I'm
that-
saying. But it's more confusing if we change them to what you're saying. Things are getting confusing, and
I don't think
also
it's
if you change
confusing.
this in legal, and this is my last point. Let me do it, and then you can have a say. But this has led to some quite disturbing things where men are getting put into female prisons and having babies in there, things like this. And horrible things are happening to women from some of these men, and some people are doing this deliberately, taking advantage of people who do have this dysphoria, and pretending so they can get away with doing all kinds of heinous crimes. And you must have heard of these things like this happening. And what I'm saying is this has come about by the confusion in language and everyone thinking it's somehow, because a lot of people are somehow under the impression that it's scientific. We know it's not. We both just talked about that. But and that's what's concerning, is people think there's actual real hardcore science when it's actually basically a linguistic. It's all just linguistic.
Yeah. So these are very good questions. I think to your first thing is that I actually think that the language, historically speaking, has been more in line with trans people's usage of the terms as well as their advocates. But that's an empirical dispute, a historical dispute. We can talk about that later. Your second point is that you're saying that there's if we start using the terms the way that trans LGBTQ advocates use the terms, and we get things like pregnant women in men's prisons, as you're saying. But
it's confusing. Yeah,
I think what's happening here is there's a lot of layers of issues as to why that might happen. But the first thing is that if you really wanted to solve the issue, and I don't really know, actually, I don't even know if this would solve the issue, but you could always discriminate based on whether you can reproduce or not. I think that's what people are trying to do. They don't really want to discriminate against men and women so much as people that have a particular social role, which might include being able to reproduce.
But do you not think there needs to be a scientific metric so we know where we put a man and a woman in a male-female prisons and the reasons we do that? But if there's no metric to decide whether someone has this dysphoria you're talking about, then how can we tell if someone's not faking it to take advantage? And that's the real danger to women.
You're jumping too many issues. Let's talk about the prison thing.
Okay.
I'm just saying the prison thing is interesting because I think that I could see where you're coming from there. But I have a question. So let's say that there was an offer to trans women that if you can, trans men, that you could only participate in a men's prison if you're able to reproduce to take birth control. Would you say that? And let's say that birth control, for sake of argument, is 100% effective. I know there's no such thing, but let's just say that there is. Would your anxiety disappear?
No, because I mean, that person could still abuse the woman. The trans woman could, the trans woman, if you allow me to say that, can still abuse the woman. Like, even if they have birth control, I mean, there's still.
What is your concern with?
So my concern is if there's no metric scientific way. So we know if someone has a broken arm, right? We know if a lot of mental conditions, I guess we can figure out with brain scans, brain damage. What I'm saying is, how do we know if someone has this condition genuinely, or is it making it up?
No, I want to stick with the prison thing.
Advantage?
I want to know your problem. What is your concern for a trans man to be, or let's say
trans
a trans woman to be in a men's
in a woman's prison?
They can't reproduce.
It's not about reproduce. It's about rape. So there's lots of rapes coming on and abuse.
Men get raped in men get raped in men's. Like,
but is it fair? Okay,
you're assuming that the only rape that happens is the one that happened here. That's not true. And the flip side, I just want to add something. The flip side is that in a woman's prison, are you familiar with like Buck Angel or any of those really massive trans men? You'd have to put somebody like that in the woman's prison. So how would you square that away?
No. What I'm saying is,
the more important question. You'd have to put somebody...
Sorry. So how would I square what away again?
Some of these trans men are really heavily built, really muscular, and very strong.
Yeah.
You'd have to put someone like that who, may be a felon criminal in the woman's prison. How would that go? They would be so much stronger and more dangerous than any woman in there. And they could basically do whatever they wanted because they're big people. How would you square that away?
I'm not squaring it with it. You get that in male prison, like you said, right? So that's a problem for both. You get even bigger males that boss all the other males around, and this rape, like you're saying, in the male prison. So I'm not having. What I'm saying is, without a metric,
rape in the female prisons. I hate to break it to you.
No, you're not breaking it to me. What I'm saying is, when there's no metric to decide whether someone has this dysphoria, what's to stop someone, average male, who's maybe he's getting abused in the prison, taking advantage of this and getting transferred to a female prison where he'll have an easier ride. Do you see what I'm saying? So because
So
there's no, that's the question I was really getting to. The prison thing's like a symptom of it.
How we psychologically evaluate somebody for these things in the same way that we always psychologically evaluate with trained professionals whose job is to psychologically evaluate. I'm not saying it's foolproof, certainly not. But
there's no science behind it at all, is there? So how do you even start
how
with
do
it?
you how do you evaluate somebody for any other mental diagnose somebody for any mental disorder?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is how old? Where there's a lot of things like, yeah, and you're right about that, because just diagnosing mental health is extremely difficult, and it's a constantly changing field. So to think that we've definitely got this in the bag, or this is correct, what we're doing here, is I think is jumping the gun a little bit, because we are so far behind in understanding the mind, right, compared to other parts of the body.
But what's your alternative?
Go ahead, Mark.
Sorry, what's your alternative? Because these people...
I have an alternative.
Suicide among them is massive, and you try to address these issues that they're having, and your thing is, well, it's hard, so why should we do it?
No, I'm not saying that. No, I'm not. No. What I'm saying is, until we have concrete science on something, we shouldn't be trying to change the whole of society. Looking into things of mental health to help people I'm 100% behind that. I can't stress that enough. And if this turns out to be something that can help, and we can start proving it with real evidence that this is helping and reduces suicides and helping, then I am for it. But I am not for turning society on its head before we have concrete data, and that's what I think a lot of people's concerns are.
Well,
and when a lot of this, like Danny has admitted, is basically a linguistics, and there isn't that much hard data behind this.
Well, I'm saying you guys,
we shouldn't be so quick to be jumping on everyone.
I'm saying that you guys are talking past us.
Yeah.
I don't feel I have tried to talk past you.
Yeah, because Danny, we're trying to speak English, and you want to redefine terms.
No, you're redefining the terms. The biblical.
For me, I'm trying to be more understanding
figures,
than it is.
like Moses and Abraham and Jesus did not understand men as being about chromosomes, right? You're changing the definition.
You little beta cuck, shut up.
Wow, you're such a nice guy, Kevin.
Yeah, Reid, you can shut up too.
But I had an interesting take on this.
Lovely Christian guy.
I'm going to go now, guys. It was really nice.
Yeah, Kato, it was a really interesting conversation, man. I'd like to talk again in the future, because it was very interesting. I really appreciate you.
Really
sorry, Kevin couldn't keep up.
All right, guys, take care. Yeah,
guys are delusional, man.
So,
Kevin, I have an interesting.
What is your anger at this? I want to understand where this anger is coming from.
You know how much this is going to screw up kids? The next generation is screwed.
I don't think it's going to.
You probably screw up more kids than me and anyone else combined.
From the next generation I've met, they're pretty good people, and pretty well firmly rooted in what they believe and what they're after. I really have a lot of optimism for the future, actually, because the young people I've met, as opposed to, say the boomers I've met, for instance, seem like their heads are on pretty straight, to be honest with you. So I'm not worried in the slightest. Look,
I had an interesting.
Progressively getting worse.
It just seems like
I had an interesting take on this issue.
This thing, so you don't want to do it, and you can be a bigot all you want, but don't expect the rest of us to go along with this utter tripe that you're trying.
Wait, so it's not okay to call men and women. It's not okay to do that.
Well, I think that I think that we've gone.
It's not like you can give an account of what those are. You failed.
Danny, shut up! I'm talking to Mark. I'm tired of hearing your beta male voice.
It's not like you can give a good account of what these are yourself. You failed like.
Danny,
I had an interesting take on this issue.
This isn't discussing with somebody. All you're doing is calling people names like a child. Like,
good. You want me to call you names too, retard?
All right. Wait. I had something to say about this.
It's not an argument.
You
it's not
brain dead, evolutionist, godless moron.
Wait. I had something to say about this. I had a suggestion. So this is what I'm getting. What about this? Okay. This is what I thought of. If we're to look at it in terms of like birth and procreation side of things, or just what we know so far, it's like what I'm getting is this, right? There's male, female, but then there's male, and then there's female.
Hey,
And then
you know what?
there's
These people here defending this. These are the same ones that will stand up for pedophiles.
no,
not
but
like-
Okay,
no,
well,
but it's not like that. Wait, let me finish first.
you
It's not
talking
like that.
about
That's not.
These
chromosomes?
same godless fuck will stand up for people that
Wait.
sex with their
Wow.
kids.
Yeah.
Let me
Okay, let's
let me
let
explain.
Yo-Yo, finish.
Hold on,
Probably
let me
might be a
explain.
pedophile, Kevin.
Hold on, let me explain. There's a fine line
You have a
here.
pedophile face, Kevin.
Wait, Danny.
Okay,
There's a
let's
fine.
let
Your
Yo-Yo
mom, Danny.
finish.
Your mom.
Yeah. Wait,
Okay,
there's a fine
let
line
Yo-Yo
here.
finish.
Yeah. There's a fine line here. I feel like the way we're looking at this is what is everyone willing to accept. And then the problem with this issue is that it affects the rest of society or how society is defined. For an example, things like marriages and where we stand. So what I was gonna say is this, right? When people are born, we're gonna start with the basic ones. There's for what I've seen, there's male and female. And then when people grow up, these things then define marriage. Because marriage, number one, initially was the union between men and female. And then you had the other side, which was called sodoming. Sodoming was defined as the union between two people of the same sex. And also, when language was being developed, everyone knew he, she. He was to refer to a male, she was to refer to a female. And this had no issues, even if you go down the line, depending on what you choose. If you had two gay people married to each other, it was he. If you had two females, they were both she's. The issue that I see that started coming into this picture is when we started introducing transgenders, where you have now certain things like a man transitioning to be a woman. How do you refer to them? Because if that person, how do you even define that person? Is
Look,
he?
I'm not
Is he?
tracking- Look,
Wait, I haven't finished it. I'm just gonna finish the answer.
Okay.
Is that person 100% woman, or is that now like a trans something? You then have to assign pronouns for that person that are different from what we've known, because they need to be either something or be called she. A trans woman has to therefore be called she. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. And a trans woman then has to be called he. Otherwise, you have to assign new things to these people. And also, marriage will be messed up because you can have a marriage, right?
Like
Or
about 10
you can have a
points that we've
union.
been through so far.
Yeah, you can have a union where right, where a man and a woman are married, but both genders are reversed. Like do you get it? It's a trans woman marrying a trans man. All that means is just it's a man and woman, but it's now like reversed. Or you can have a transgender, like it gets confusing from that point. It doesn't really get confusing, but you then have different dynamics. And how do you refer trans? How do you therefore refer to those people? Because you can't define them under the normal marriage or the normal he-she that all society has been built on. These people, I feel like they're the issue now because they're introducing something totally different. We have to therefore address this. Because anything outside this, there's nothing else. This pronouns...
Seriously, man, you're going over the same
I'm
point
just
again and
losing
again
track
and
of
again.
everything.
Yeah, so
I'm just not solidifying
not
to say...
everybody thinks marriage is just between one man and one woman and that's it. In fact, even in the Bible, it's not between one man and one woman. It was one man and
I addressed that.
women that he could keep. So Kevin, please just control your raging anger there.
No, I've been listening to you morons babble about nonsense.
It's not like you can show us an adequate definition
Danny,
of
Tell me
So-
about talking, man.
So Kevin, has marriage always been between one woman and one man?
Absolutely.
So in
Yes.
the Bible, they
It
didn't
was
have multiple
initiated by the
wives.
church in the Garden of Eden. God initiated the first marriage ceremony, and ever since then, that's what it has been until people decide to try to redefine what marriage is.
Could people
Just
have
like
more
you
than
guys
one-
want to redefine what a man is and what a woman is.
Could
you
people
wanna say, oh,
have
we
more
want-
than one wife in the Old Testament?
Don't change the subject.
No, I can
Marriage
answer
was
that.
a
I can answer that question. I can
so
answer that
not
question.
Not everybody
According
believes that marriage
No, but,
is one
wait, can I
woman
answer-
and one
can I answer
man,
your
or
marriage
even one
issue?
man and
It was
and
never
multiple
ordained by
women?
God.
Wait, can I answer your marriage issue from a Christian point of
Well,
view?
all I asked, the only
What
question
you-
I asked Yo-Yo, so you don't sort of take it onto other subjects, is was marriage between one man and multiple women in the Old Testament is the question I asked.
No, the definition of marriage
No.
wasn't that, but people did do that.
People
It
did
wasn't
do
right,
that.
though.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Yeah, but it
Mark's
wasn't
point
right.
is that if
Hasn't-
it's not if that's not the definition, Mark's point is that then they wouldn't be wives. But they are wives.
They are, and the Bible
No.
says they were. That's the
No,
whole
but your
point.
question was
So
marriage
not
between one
always
woman and one man, and I said
yeah, If I
yes.
could just finish, marriage wasn't always between one man and one woman, and the definitions of stuff changes. Like these things, just because Christians have an idea of what marriage is, doesn't mean that's automatically
It's because
what it
God.
is.
That's what God says it is.
Yeah. Okay. So if somebody gets married in Hindu culture, is it not a marriage?
Yes, because
But
it's
you-
a man and a woman.
Well, then it's not a marriage because they're not under
Yes, it
Christianity.
is.
Yeah, see, not everybody believes in the Christian sort of stuff that you're saying. Like the Hindus, they
Listen,
don't
whether
believe
you're
in
a
that.
Christian or not, marriage
It
is
doesn't
a
really
man and a
matter.
woman coming together.
Yeah, so not everybody thinks that that's what marriage is, Kevin. I hate
Okay.
to break it to you.
Well,
but
that's what marriage is. It's from our worldview. God initiated it, and you're
Is it?
borrowing. Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
marriage.
Yeah, Mark gave a
predates
counterexample of
Christianity.
that, right? He just gave a counterexample. How are you going to respond to his
Danny,
counterexample?
shut
Yeah,
up.
so the Hindu religion is actually older than it's the oldest religion to date, and so when you
Oh, that's a
claim
load of malarkey.
Hinduism,
We also believe that Christianity is the oldest, so
organised religion. That's just a fact. I hate
Judaism
to break
is
it to you.
older than Hinduism.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it is.
Well, we could point to older customs like Sumerian, for instance. Do you think they didn't have marriage?
Of course they did.
Okay, well that's something that predates Christianity.
Yeah, because Christianity wasn't around yet. It was Judaism.
So it's not coming from your worldview. It's
coming
whatever.
from the Bible.
Yeah, it's really not. So
It really is.
Why does the government give out marriage licenses instead of priests?
Because the government didn't used to do that. The government oversteps.
Oh.
They have no business partaking in
Oh.
marriage.
Oh, right. Well, marriage has changed.
Did
Marriage
you know-
isn't what you think it is in the Bible.
But did you know that under
Not
the
everybody
American
believes
Constitution
in
that
what you
marriage
have in the Bible. So the fact that you want to basically apply your religion to everybody in society, you see, we have this thing called freedom of religion. So if you don't want to be a part of your religion, you don't have to be. And so these people, they might not agree with you on what marriage is,
Mark,
and they
when
don't
did I
have
say
to
they have to
accept.
be a part of my religion?
Wait,
You're
but
trying
Mark,
to tell
you do
everybody what marriage is and what it should be.
You
and what
can't
I'm
read the
telling
Bible.
you
Look,
is that
if
we
marriage
can I ask-
comes from the Bible,
we don't have to adhere to your interpretation
Mark,
of what a marriage
okay, I let
is.
you
But Mark, wait,
Shut up, I'm
Kevin,
done.
can I say something?
Yeah,
Can I
go
say
for it,
something?
Mario.
Oh, Mark, you do realize, since you brought up the law issue thing, you do realize that America was founded upon Christian morals, right? If you look at the Constitution before it was changed, marriage was actually defined under the Constitution as the union between a male and a woman, and sodomy under the same Constitution was defined between the union of two same-sex people.
Oh,
So
we
man,
should
man,
have
or
the-
female, female.
So we should have the laws from when the country was founded. Is that what you're saying?
That would be actually better.
Oh, so slavery then?
We're not talking about slavery.
Well,
What on
We're talking about
slavery
we're
was
talking about
also-
marriage.
No,
We're talking
yo-yo,
about marriage here.
Yo-yo, slavery was also enshrined in the law. It was actually an amendment to the Constitution. Did you know that?
But we're talking about marriage. You're not bringing other things. You are speaking better
What I'm
about me
saying
bringing
is
other
that-
issues.
What I'm saying is that the laws.
Yeah, but be
changed.
specific to
yo-yo,
what we're
let me
talking
finish,
about.
Let me finish. What I'm saying is that the laws changed, and just because there were laws about marriage and sodomy back when the country was founded, doesn't mean that it's a good idea today. Just as there were laws about slavery doesn't mean that it was a good idea today. The whole idea of laws, and especially the American Constitution, one of the beautiful things about it is it can be changed, it can be amended, and that's the whole point. Things have changed since marriage was in the Bible. Things will change going into the future.
But I had to
And
correct
just
Mark for a
because
second.
you want to, I'm happy to be corrected. Just because you want things to be the same as what they were in the Bible, tough. It's just not like that anymore.
Wait,
But
can I
do you
make a
find it
point? Sorry, slavery was never condoned by the U.S. Constitution. I just wanted to make that historical correction.
Really? I can check that.
It was never when it was originally ratified, slavery wasn't prohibited, but it also that was the problem. That's why the United States fought the Civil War. And during the Civil War, there was a constitutional amendment that explicitly prohibited it, but it was never a protected practice under the U.S. Constitution
Is
at any point.
slavery under the original U.S. Constitution legally? Was it permissible?
It was permissible as a state's
That's
right.
all
But
Mark
wait,
needs
no,
to
no,
know.
hold on. The Constitution never. The Constitution didn't speak about slavery, and thus, as a result, the 10th Amendment states that anything not specifically delegated to the federal government is reserved for the states. So it was a state by state issue, and obviously the southern states were the ones who.
Right. So
But it was meant.
permissible.
It was permissible, but it wasn't condoned or protected.
Yeah, the
Mark, but that's
So,
all you
I-
need, right?
The
Mark, that's all you
Constitution
need.
prohibited the Congress from outlawing the Atlantic slave trade for 20 years. A fugitive slave clause required the return of runaway slaves to their owners. The Constitution gave the federal government the power to put down domestic rebellions, including slave insurrections.
Yeah, but any rebellion. So if it was a slave rebellion, but they also put down rebellions of people who were like rebelling
any
against.
domestic rebellions, yes, including slave rebellions, sure, yeah.
Yes, but if you look in the Constitution, at no point did it say like slavery is a protected practice. That's why states could outlaw slavery at any
But
point
it
in the
was
country's
permissible.
history. I didn't hear what you said.
It was permissible, and the fugitive slave clause required
Well,
the return of
it
runaway
was
slaves
permissible,
to their owners.
But I want to give a historical context for that. Slavery was permissible. Slavery was permissible in the entire world at that time.
Yeah. I'm not making a moral judgment on the founding fathers of America for what they did. In context, they were part of that society at the time. That's what was considered right. What I'm saying is that just because there were some laws, and like the runaway slave clause, the fugitive slave clause, I beg your pardon, doesn't mean we should have the same things now. Just like there were sodomy laws back then, it's not a good idea to have the same thing now. I'm just making a parallel here.
That's true. I understand that. I know that wasn't your central point, but I just didn't want to let that stand.
No, okay. Well, I mean...
Wait, but I want to going back to the original question. Why can't, what's wrong with saying that transgenderism is a mental illness?
What's the false belief?
Yeah.
What was that?
What is the false... first of all, do you think it's a delusion? I'm assuming that you think it is.
Yes, I do.
Okay, what's the false belief?
Believing that you're a biological sex that you're not.
Is that their claim? Is that what trans people are claiming?
That's not what they claim.
But what are they claiming then?
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say the
They're
same
claiming
No,
that...
no, they are. They are claiming that. Let's say that someone is born a biological man. They are claiming that they are actually women, which is a delusion.
Are they claiming
Well,
they're
do you think they're
biological?
using the word actually woman the same
Otherwise-
sense as you are?
But I have a question. Where does the idea come from then? Unless somebody's claiming something.
Well, it's because they're claiming that a gender identity. They want to be associated with a gender identity, and this is
No,
where
they're
the
claiming.
guys are
That's
falling
no.
down.
That they're
Hey,
claiming
could you just
to
let me
be
finish?
other
Let me
sex.
finish. No, they're not. They're claiming that they want the other gender identity, and this is where you guys are falling down. You're missing the point that your gender identity as man and woman is the same as your biological sex. And that's where you're screwing up. You think that it's the same
But-
thing. That as we've been showing, that when you're using how you evaluate a man or a woman, it's got nothing to do with the biological sex. You don't look at chromosomes because people knew what a man and a woman was in the past without looking. It's to do with gender.
Wait,
Then
no.
why the transition?
Wait. You've already asked that question. Why? I don't understand. The chromosomes actually reinforce the cultural norms of the time. What they found with the chromosome was that actually there is a scientific basis for biological sex. It wasn't like, oh, we found the chromosome and think, no, it's like, oh, actually this proves what we've known all along since the beginning of time. And yes, because there are people there. You know, there's these trans women are women, and things like that. And these men are competing against women in sports and destroying them. They're actually women who have been injured in like mixed martial arts by allowing men to compete, and they're like crushing their literally like breaking their skulls because they're so much stronger than women, and women have a lower bone mass, so they're like being severely
That can
injured
happen
by
among
men.
men too, right?
Yeah.
If a 5'4", 110-pound man started playing in the NFL, the same thing would happen.
No, because women actually do have a less dense bone structure than men, because they're physically constructed differently. That's what happens when you have different genetics.
What is this?
They can look at
I'm
bones.
wondering what this is
They can look at bones in a grave and identify the sex. They can identify if someone died 2,000 years ago. They can look at it and say this was a woman, this was a man, because the bone structure is completely different.
Well,
So there is.
They're talking about like your biological sex, not your gender, and that's all the stuff
I
that
understand
you're doing
that.
is sort of referring to
But
biological sex, not
what's-
gender. I do think that there are questions in trans in sport. It's a hotly contested topic. I think that once you factor like sort of weight classes, because even among men, right, we don't just allow a heavyweight boxer to step into a ring with a featherweight, right? We don't do that for good reason. So there has been things suggested of having weight limits on places that we have concern. I don't think anybody's going to argue that trans people can't compete in like shooting sports and things like that, so that's not a problem. And there's some work to do, sure, but you guys are sort of like, well, because these things happen in this really far out example, we've got to stop all of this stuff at the bud, and the problem's not going to go away. As I said, this has been happening. They have documented cases of these priests from 2500 BC dressing up as women and participating in these rites where they affirm their womanhood. So trans have been around from before Christ, and they're gonna. It's still gonna be an issue going forward.
Yeah, there will always be mentally ill people, and there always have been.
It's not like you've shown that. It's not like you've shown that they're mentally ill.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah,
I have,
they say they're mentally ill.
you're not. It's not true. They are claiming that they are actually the other sex. That's where you're just.
Okay, so you're saying that. What do you mean? Let's say someone is born with XY chromosomes, okay, and later on, when they're 18 years old, they say that they're a woman. Do you think what they mean by woman is that they have XX chromosomes? Do you really think that's what they're fucking?
No, what they're claiming. Well, the problem is they have a mental illness. So what they're saying makes no rational sense.
Just answer the question. When an 18-year-old person with XY chromosomes says that they're a woman, do you think they're really saying that they have XX chromosomes?
They're not saying they have.
Are they saying that they have a vagina?
They're saying that they are. That's why you have these things like women can have. They're saying women can have penises. So they are claiming to be the other biological.
Wait, let's take it one piece at a time. They're not saying that they have XX chromosomes. Are they saying that when they say that they're a woman that they have a vagina? Are they saying that?
Yeah, that's why they have.
No, they're not.
No, they're not.
But then, according to you, what are they saying? I'm actually curious. What are they saying according to you? Then?
Whatever it is they're saying, because maybe there is a question about what they mean. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't think I am. But let's say they are not fucking saying that they have XX chromosomes, or that they have a vagina or a uterus, or...
Yes, they are. Why do they have the sex change surgery then?
Because they don't have those organs. They're not saying they have them. Because if no, hey, let's take this, as Danny said, let's take this one step at a time. If they are saying, I am a woman and I have a vagina, then why would they need the surgery?
Exactly.
I'm confused, but they do get the surgery.
Because the cognitive dissonance of actually having a.
Look, you haven't shown anything yet. So we have so far we've established, Mark and I have established, that they're not saying they have XX chromosomes. They're not saying they have a vagina or ovaries or uterus. So that means that in virtue of what can you show that they're being delusional? In virtue of what? What property are you appealing to?
You realize that there are actually like male genitalia and female genitalia, right? And there's like
philosophy. I actually want to go along with what Danny's saying to try understand what he's going at. So Danny, you're saying that a person is saying that he's a female. First question is, why is he saying that?
So
if he's a female, why can't he just be a female?
It could mean a lot of things. It could mean one thing. It could mean, and especially in the early stages, they might just be saying, "I'm a woman trapped in a male body." Right. And what they mean is that they have certain commitments, whether that be with respect to their role or presentation, it doesn't matter, right? That they have, and that they seek to succeed in with respect to. That's one sense. That's one thing they could mean. Another, they may not mean that. They may actually mean that I just take the role of what most biological females have, right, in this society. Okay, they might be saying that. You have to ask them if you don't know what they mean. It's a fair question to ask them. But here's what they're not saying. They're not saying they have XX chromosomes when they're been born biologically male. That's to say that they have XY chromosomes and they have a dick and all of that. They're not saying they have XX chromosomes, and they're not saying they have a vagina, ovaries, or uterus. And so I
have a question though. So wait, hold on, Philo. I have a question though. So if they're saying they're female, then why can't they just a female can say I'm a female, and they're saying that they're female.
Okay. I'm saying they're a woman. They're saying that they're a woman, but they're biologically male.
Stop messing
but they're
up. No.
That's what the question. But I want to start there.
No,
dude, you're just gonna come here again. You've been speaking.
I already started talking.
All right, say your stuff.
Right. So you're messing up between biological sex and someone's gender identity. You are basically saying they're the same thing, and you can't seem to get this through your head.
But that's where Philo is saying that's where the delusion is.
They are not saying that they're biologically born a woman, right? They're not saying that. So there is no delusion. They're under no delusions about their physical form. What they're saying is my physical body and my biological sex that I was born with is not the gender identity that I feel. They are not the same. And we don't consider it a delusion. And, I'd love to see A's, diagnosis credentials as a psychologist or psychiatrist to sort of be calling people this, but we don't consider people
he doesn't have any of that.
Aware of the reality of the situation as delusional. That's it.
All right. Well, let me
so in other words, what you're saying is it's a female having a male body. In other words,
let me give you an example of a real problem this creates. Because some of these people go through the gender transition surgery, which is entirely cosmetic, and then
do you agree with us now that they're not delusional?
Wait, hold on. Let me finish.
You're changing the subject. I just want to know. Do you have your agreement?
What's that?
Why? I don't see why we need to move on to a different topic when we can't agree on this topic. So do we agree that they're not delusional, given the example
I just gave? No, they are. I'm about to explain why. Because here's what happens.
Before you explain why, just give me the false belief, and then you can explain.
The false belief is that they actually are whatever it is, the other biological sex, and that's what they do claim. And one of the problems that is created by this. Hold on. Yes, they do. And one of the problems this creates is when they go through the sex change surgery to pretend like they're the actual opposite sex. A lot of them detransition later in their lives, and they've mutilated themselves. This is a real problem.
It doesn't matter.
They mutilated themselves. They can't reproduce anymore. They realized that what they had was a psychological problem, but their bodies have been mutilated.
Let me explain why this immaterial, or it's peripheral, right? The reason why is that the consequences of their actions is separate from whether their beliefs that motivated their actions are contradictory, right? You're claiming that
so they've chopped off their body parts, and that's immaterial. It's not to them.
No, I'm
People
just
like
saying
you,
the
people like
claim
you
that
have heard
trans
now.
people,
Alright.
the claim that
People like
trans
you
people are
have heard now.
contradicting
Hold on.
themselves.
And then later in
Let
life, they
Danny
realize
finish.
they're not
Let
actually
Danny
whatever it is they were.
Guys, I have one
everyone
question.
can't be.
I have one question. I have one question. I have one
You
question.
have many questions, Yo. Don't tell us you have
yeah.
one.
I know. I'm trying to understand this view. It's not my view, so I'm trying to really understand. The only way I can understand by asking questions. But Danny, hold on. I have a question though. Danny. So I'm kind of confused. Is this gender identity only limited to male and female, or there are other identities out there?
I don't know. That's not what I want to talk about. I want to just talk about whether there's a delusion. All right. I want to dispute that claim for right now. Okay.
Why would they chop off their body parts?
Look,
Tell
let's
me
just
that. How is
okay,
that not
let
delusional?
me grant something to your dumb ass. Okay. I'm gonna grant that just for sake of argument that gender reassignment surgery is overall a negative net yield. Okay. I'm gonna grant that there are horrible things that come from that kind of thing. I don't believe that. I'm granting it for sake of argument. It's not going to show that they're delusional. Okay. And so let's just grant all of that shit that you just uttered. Okay. Now let's move on to the real point. The
You're
point
a
is
philosopher, aren't you?
yeah, the point is
philosopher,
that
aren't
you're
you?
saying that trans people
Does that matter?
contradict themselves, and you have not pointed out a contradiction.
They chop off their body parts.
I've
Why would
granted
someone
that.
do
It's not going
unless
to show a
they're
contradiction.
delusional? Why are if you're born a man and you're literally removing your body parts permanently, that is delusional. To pretend like you're the opposite sex, because this just as I've said, the surgery is entirely
minute.
cosmetic.
What's the contradiction, dumbass? What's the P and not P? Do you know what a contradiction is?
I guess people chopping off their body parts
Wait,
because they're
Philo,
is a problem. That's the
Philo, I
delusion.
think I get their point of view. Philo, I think I get their point of view. I think the
You're
issue
a man.
here is
You have a
this. It's
penis.
like,
You chop it off because you
wait,
think you're
Philo,
not a man. There's
Philo,
your delusion.
wait, Philo, listen.
That's not
Wait,
the
can you listen
definition
for a
of
little bit?
delusion in
I think,
psychiatry or psychology.
I think the point is that I think one thing we have to acknowledge is that number one, we have a Christian view towards life. So because we have a Christian view, you're gonna always be pointing and say, okay, because we believe this thing that they're doing is wrong. They have a different point of view
No, I can
towards
assume
life
the
as well.
Christian worldview.
So
I can assume the Christian
yeah,
worldview.
okay, but in the Christian worldview, how can you assume
You
gender
know, a lot of
identity in that? Because
Christians don't have a lot of problems with it as well. There's Christians that are very supportive of the trans community. You do realize that, don't you?
Yeah, so let's analyze it on the
but-
Christian worldview, right? Remember, the claim is that trans people are delusional. Okay, under the Christian worldview, there's
But
a
I didn't
difference
say that. That
between-
was Philo. That's not what I'm saying. That's what Philo said. Why are you
Okay, what do you mean?
assigning what Philo said to me? For me, I'm just saying. For me, my
Well, we're
point in
trying
all
to get
this, or
over
my
this
view is
point,
that
Yo-Yo. We're trying to get over this point which we seem to be stuck on earlier.
Oh,
And
with
I
the
agree
Philo.
with Danny, we
Well,
kind of have to get over this delusion.
that's what I'm saying.
point.
Yeah, that's because Philo has a different worldview towards things. That's what I don't know. I think Philo is. I don't know if he's Christian or Muslim though.
It doesn't matter. The point is that whatever you are, I don't see how
Yeah,
whether
that-
you're a Christian, Muslim, or super conservative, it's just not going to make sense to say that these people are delusional because they're not.
Right.
When they express
That's
their gender, they're not expressing any of these
When I see
primary
them chopping
biological.
their body parts off, that's delusion to me.
Well, let
No, that's
Danny
what I'm saying.
finish.
That's what-
Let Danny finish.
That's yeah, he finished. But that's what I'm saying. That's where the delusion is. It's all to do with worldview. If everyone, let's say, was like Danny, and we see it from, let's say, an atheistic point of view, then everyone be like, yeah, we agree. But because we're Christian, we're always gonna be in
I'm saying I'm
conflict.
assuming your realistic atheism is false. I'm fine with saying that, okay? I'm saying that even
Okay.
if atheism were false, and we assumed your worldview or A's worldview, my point still stands.
That
Well,
you might
then
disagree
no,
with it,
you-
but it's not a delusion because the whole
Okay.
point in psychology, the whole point, and there's a lot of Christian
God created
psychologists, there's
male
a
and
lot of
female.
Christian psychiatrists. It has to be a delusion
What's-
is basically where your perspective of reality is distorted, so it no longer matches reality. And Danny's
Oh,
whole
yeah.
point is that trans people, they're aware of what the reality is. They're not suffering from a delusion. I
in
do
that-
apologize.
then in that
I've
case,
got
I'd
to
say-
go. I've got to go, but it was great talking with you, Danny. Yeah, I really enjoyed talking with you as well, mate. Yeah, it was good to see you.
Yeah, I'm
but-
probably going to take my lead too.
Yeah, sorry guys,
Oh,
I
'cause-
do have to go for dinner, so.
I might stick around a little bit.
All right, take care.
Bye. See ya.
Cause my next
I want to ask a
my-
question, Danny.
wait, my next point of view.